from an anonymous senior Trump administration official claiming that there are those who work from inside the administration, including from inside the White House, who are working to thwart the president's worst impulses and, quote, preserve our democratic institutions. President Trump just spoke again moments ago. Let's listen in.
I think he's a terrific person. He's doing a fantastic job as Secretary of Defense.
And he'll stay in that job.
Yeah, he'll stay right there.
And
we're very happy with him. We're having a lot of victories. We're having victories that people don't even know about, and he's highly respected all over the world.
That was President Trump responding to a report in the Washington Post, and Caitlin Collins is at the White House for us. What exactly was President Trump reacting to there that was in the Washington Post, and what did he say?
Well, Jake, to set the stage for you here, in this book from Bob Woodward, one of the most explosive claims was that he was attributing quotes to the Defense Secretary, James Mattis, who you just saw the president talking about there, saying that Mattis had told people he believed after one conversation that he found particularly tough with the president, according to this book, that he said the president had the understanding of a 5th or 6th grader for this, among other comments that Mattis made about the president. Now, you heard from the president there. That comes as there was reports that there's talk inside the White House about replacing the defense secretary. And this comes after there had actually been, for the last few weeks and months, more of a strained relationship between President Trump and the defense secretary, James Mattis, something we saw. And then this book comes with those claims from Mattis. But the president there, citing Mattis's denials, he issued a very lengthy denial yesterday, saying that he did not say the things that Bob Woodward had attributed to him in the book, and that he was not asked to verify those quotes either. But there were a few things also that Mattis is attributed as saying in that book, and one was that particularly telling conversation, Jake, where the president told Mattis that he wanted to assassinate the Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad, and that afterward Mattis called one of his deputies and said that wasn't what was going to happen. They were going to take a much more measured approach, essentially ignoring a command from President Trump. Now, today, when reporters were in the Oval Office with the president, he denied that he ever made a comment like that, ever directed James Mattis to assassinate the Syrian leader. And then you saw there the president saying that he's going to keep James Mattis on as his defense secretary, and citing his denial. But, Jake, this really shows how the White House is responding to this book that they knew for months was coming. The president keeps citing these denials from John Kelly and from James Mattis. But, of course, as we discussed yesterday, those were only partial denials. In his statement, James Mattis didn't deny that the president ever said anything about the Syrian leader to him. And in John Kelly's statement, he only denied ever calling the president an idiot, but didn't deny all the other things that were attributed to him in that book. So it just shows how this is really consuming the White House, this book, and consuming President Trump and the meetings he's having today here at the White House.
All right, Caitlin Collins, thanks so much. Let's go back to this New York Times op-ed that the New York Times just published from a senior Trump administration official. It's titled, I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. The official in question saying that he or she believes that a lot of what President Trump is doing is good, but there are many members of the administration who feel that they have to protect the country from the president's worst impulses. Here's another excerpt from the op-ed. Quote, there is literally no telling whether he, the president, might change his mind from 1 minute to the next, a top official complained to me recently, exasperated by an Oval Office meeting at which the president flip-flopped on a major policy decision he'd made only a week earlier. And Amanda Carpenter, I understand the degree to which some people think it's distasteful to publish something like this without a name attached to it. But if we could just get to the substance of this, this is something that we have seen play out in real time. We have seen an administration policy put out there and then completely disavowed and walked back because President Trump was just speaking off the cuff or venting or whatever. It's gotten to the point that we don't even talk about it anymore. President Trump was talking about changing libel laws just this morning, I believe. And, you know, in any other administration, we would take something like that very seriously. But I mean, so whether or not you like who this person is or whether or not you believe he's actually somebody important, I mean, we have seen evidence of this.
Yeah, and it is interesting that this piece zeroes in on the president's Russia policy and expresses concerns about how much of a hard time they had to get him on board with expelling Russian operatives in the United States, sticking with that, trying to get on board with sanctions. But let's not be mistaken. There's a big element of self-preservation in this piece in which the author complains about the bad name that White House aides get for sticking with President Trump and trying to help him. And I do think this does underscore the major theme of the Bob Woodward book, fear. The people who stay in the White House stay because out of fear of what could happen if they leave. And that's what this author is saying here. We are afraid of what the president would do if there's not some of us trying to restrain him. And maybe that's just them trying to preserve their own self-image for what may come later. Or maybe it's actually true, but we don't know. And that's the frustration here, is that there's so much of what we don't know and what's made up and what's not that I really wish if the author felt this strongly, he or she would put his darn name on it.
Well, this is something that, let me just bring in Simone Sanders for 1 second. This is a criticism I hear from the left all the time about people who theoretically are the axis of grown-ups, which, you know, whether it's John Kelly or, you know, Rex Tillerson, who was fired, or H.R. McMaster, who retired, or General Mattis, people who supposedly are some of the people controlling the president's best impulses. I hear liberals say all the time, that doesn't mean anything to me. If they're so courageous and patriotic, why don't they resign and put their name to it and tell everybody what's going on?
Again, I don't think this op-ed is enough, actually. I think whoever is the author of this op-ed, they should go to Congress. If they really feel this strongly about what's happening in the White House, if they really feel, I mean, there are, you know, whistleblower protections are there for situations such as this. And so there are protections. You know, whistleblowers are, I think, a piece of democracy,
There's no
if you
protection
will.
from Trump's Twitter.
Well, you know what? If you're willing to put it in the New York Times, you should be willing to go to Congress.
I think that illustrates, go to Congress. Who do you go to in Congress?
Well.
I mean, this is a Republican Congress where you have a very small handful of your Ben Sass, of your Jeff Flake, who say, oh, I'm very concerned about something Donald Trump done. Has any Republican held an oversight hearing? Has any Republican stood up and said, we want to use the power of Congress to assert that there are misdeeds going on? No, the only hearings that you get out of Congress are those to investigate the Mueller investigation.
Jeffrey Toobin making the case for Democrats in 2018.
Just another quick thing to point. There's another thing.
No, he's not. But I mean, that is why so many people. There was a poll from the Washington Post that came out yesterday that noted an increasing number of Americans want a check on Trump. They want Congress to do their job. What Jeffrey is describing,
check on Trump.
Well, clearly, but what Jeffrey is describing is a lack of a check on the president.
So Jake, I was just going to say, you know, one of the things to read in this, you know, gives you a little insight.
Yeah.
Although he's elected as a Republican, the president shows little affinity for ideals long espoused by conservatives.
Free minds, free markets, and free people.
So this president is breaking a lot of China when it comes to China, when it comes to free trade. The president wants fair trade. He has tariffs. He's doing a lot of things that make a lot of traditional Republicans very upset. There are lots of members of the Senate and the House that are completely upset, and so it appears that this is someone who's writing this from the George Will wing of the party and may not be happy with what the president's doing. He was elected not as a mainstream Republican.
No,
that's
absolutely
quite
not.
certain.
So, and in fact, and I'm certain, just based on covering President Trump, that he wants to know who wrote this, right? I mean, that's fair. We've already been. That's a fair bet. We've already been
more than a fair bet.
We've already been reporting that Jeffrey Zeleny at the White House has been reporting that the White House is trying to figure out in a quote-unquote witch hunt about who cooperated with the Bob Woodward book. And one clue in here that shows that this is probably not a member of Trump's inner circle is that the op-ed ends with very nice words about the late Senator John McCain, calling him a lodestar for restoring honor to public life and our national dialogue. And this is somebody who does come from the McCain wing of the Republican Party.
Well, not necessarily even the McCain wing, but more the George Will wing of the Republican Party, right? The free trade, Eurocentric, believes in multilateralism. That's not this president.
Right.
Clearly, it's not this
and
president.
it's not the inner circle for the president, but it still might be.
I'm hoping it's Nikki Haley.
Maybe it's Mike Pence, y'all.
Nikki, don't anybody run with that.
Oh my God, she's not going to be happy with that. But do you have